Hi everyone, I'm Tanaz from foreverconscious.com and this is your weekly energy forecast for the week of May 8th. So I know you're probably all keen to hear about that blood moon eclipse happening on May 15th, 16th. That'll depend on your time zone. But we have so much else happening in the week, so I'm just going to work in order. Just to sort of recap, to sort of settle into where we are currently moving through the eclipse portal. This is a highly sensitive time, a time where we're kind of crossing a bridge from one state of consciousness to the next. We generally can feel a little more tired, a little more sensitive, a little more receptive. Sometimes even like our world is turning upside down as we're navigating this eclipse portal. The energies can be strong. And as we get closer to that blood moon eclipse, which I'll talk about in a minute, we'll feel the energies intensifying. That eclipse is about closure, endings, release points. And so as we're sort of navigating this vulnerable time from one chapter to the next, from one state to the next, we'll be able to get more clarity, gain a little more understanding as we get further along. So if you're feeling a little confused, a little bit like your life's upside down, that will pass. And actually, speaking of life turning upside down, on May 10th, we have Mercury going retrograde. This is happening right in the heart of that eclipse portal. Mercury rules over our mind, and the ancients would say that when it entered retrograde, it was traveling through the underworld, so our subconscious mind, the hidden realms, unearthing information, messages, intuitive pings that we might have missed or just didn't want to hear the first time. And as Mercury travels through the underworld, it unearths all of this stuff for us. It works in our subconscious mind, bringing all of that up to our conscious mind so we can be more informed, so we can make better decisions. And that's why it's suggested to not make big decisions, to not make lifelong commitments, especially new ones, when Mercury is in retrograde, because once Mercury appears from the underworld, which happens on June 3rd, it will have all this new information for us, and that might change our decision, change our minds about things. So Mercury retrograde, not the best time for new things, new endeavors, but it is a good time to go within, to listen to our inner voice, to work on our subconscious thought patterns that might be holding us back. It's a good time to reflect, to go back over things, back over the past. If something from the past comes back up under a Mercury retrograde, that is a pretty good sign that there is something that you need to learn there. There's some point of closure that needs to be released, or one final lesson. That lesson might be saying, no, I don't want this in my life. Or that lesson might be needing to explore what's come up again. So keep that in mind under Mercury retrograde. Planets cannot cause anything. They are simply energetic expressions. So even though it's fun to blame Mercury retrograde on things, all planets are doing are just highlighting potentials that are already there. So if you do find yourself feeling frustrated under a Mercury retrograde, remember Mercury rules our mind. Things can feel confusing, we can feel mentally foggy, life may not make sense to us in the external world, it may feel a little chaotic, like that feeling of everything being turned upside down. If you're feeling that, that is your call to go within, to center yourself, to sit with yourself, to get still with your own inner voice, your own inner heart. Mercury is the messenger of the gods, and I take that to mean the messenger of your higher self. So Mercury retrograde is a wonderful time to connect with your higher self, to connect with that still inner voice, and to allow that energy to ground you and guide you. So keep that in mind under any Mercury retrograde, but particularly this one because it's a little extra sensitive because it's happening right in the heart of that eclipse portal. So Mercury will retrograde on May 10th and will leave retrograde, turning direct on June 3rd. Also on May 10th, this is a big day, we have Jupiter entering Aries for the first time in nearly 12 years. This is a big cosmic event for 2022. If you've been following astrology for a while, you might start to notice that Jupiter moves signs every year. And that is true. Jupiter spends about 12 months in each sign of the zodiac. So yes, every year it will move into a new sign, and the sign that Jupiter moves into kind of colors the flavor of the year ahead. So Jupiter will move into Aries on May 10th and will stay there until October 28th, when it will dip back into Pisces, where it has been for the last 12 months or so. And then it will move back into Aries once more, again in December to May of next year. So we're getting a little taste from May until October of Jupiter in Aries before it goes back into Pisces. So Jupiter has been in Pisces. On May 10th, it moves into Aries. This is a big energy shift. Jupiter in Aries expands the energy of Aries. So Aries is that fiery inner warrior. It brings us confidence. It brings us fearlessness. It helps us take those leaps of faith. It's an awesome time. If there has been something that you have wanted to do that just feels outside the realm of your comfort zone, that just feels a little too big, maybe a little too grand, oh, that's not for me, I can't do that. Jupiter in Aries can really give you the push, the rise of confidence to go out there and take that leap of faith. It is a beautiful energy for supporting our dreams and goals, especially if they're a bit daring, if they're a bit big, if they're a bit ambitious. Jupiter in Aries is a wonderful recipe for that. Jupiter in Aries can also heighten our independence. I want to be more independent. I want to be, to do things on our own, in our own way, in our own time. Jupiter in Aries can really heighten that. It also can heighten entrepreneurial energy. We can tap into that inner entrepreneur. Jupiter in Aries is sort of the signature for the entrepreneur. So we could see that unfolding on the world stage too. Jupiter in Aries is also very opinionated, and it can also lead with the ego if the energy is not carefully used. So that's something to keep in mind. Opinions can be strong and egos can rise, but if we're using this energy consciously, we can really use it to raise our confidence, state our worth, but do so with kindness and with an open heart. So we're still learning, so we're still taking in information. On a kind of global level, Jupiter in Aries, so Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So Jupiter moving into Aries could signify a new chapter for us, a new chapter on a global level. It makes me think of the pandemic, everything that we've kind of been through with that. And now Jupiter moving into Aries might start to give us a sense of a new chapter unfolding. So we could also see that happening with Jupiter in Aries. If you want to find out what that means, Jupiter in Aries means for you, and if you also want to look back and see what was happening in your life last time Jupiter was in Aries, because that can also kind of help you navigate what might manifest for you this time, check out my article. I will drop a link below. You can find it at foreverconscious.com as well. In the article, I outline the cosmic energies of Jupiter in Aries, how you can kind of work with the energies in your own life, and plus I give you a horoscope at the end of the article, which will help you understand what Jupiter in Aries means for your sign. So check that out if you want to know more. All right, moving on now to the blood moon eclipse. This is definitely the main event of the week. Blood moon eclipses are very, very potent, and they're also very rare. We actually have 2 of them this year. We'll have another blood moon eclipse on November 8th. So these 2 eclipses will kind of work together. So if you feel like this eclipse does not really bring all the closure, there's a little bit of a feeling of things being a little bit incomplete under this particular eclipse, you will find that the eclipse in November will help to wrap things up, will be sort of the other chapter in the story that we're working with. So that eclipse comes in November. This eclipse falls in the sign of Scorpio. So there really is this theme of metamorphosis, of moving through a cycle of death and rebirth. And for all of us, we may find ourselves really at a heart moment, a critical moment on a particular cycle of death and rebirth in our own lives. While this eclipse is bringing that sort of death phase, that closure phase, that ashes phase, it also brings the promise of a rising, like that phoenix rising from the ashes. This is the point where things are meant to be closed. Doors are meant to be shut. We are reaching a completion, an end point, a point of closure. But of course, whenever a door closes, another one opens somewhere else. Even if we can't see it just yet, that is what this eclipse promises. So we are in this sort of death phase, and a rebirth will come, and that rebirth will manifest in its own time when it's ready. But this eclipse is really about closure and endings. What's really interesting and what's important to kind of note with this eclipse is that eclipses always put us where we need to be for the highest evolution of our soul. I add that part in at the end about the highest evolution of our soul is because sometimes where we land up definitely cannot feel like where we need to be. On a human level, it can be like, no, this is not where I need to be. I don't want to be here. But on a soul level, it's where we need to be for our highest evolutions. That's why I include that little part. So if you have landed somewhere that does not feel like it's where you're meant to be, that's okay. But maybe on a soul level, it's where you are needed right now for the highest evolution of your soul, even if your human self can't comprehend that just yet. So eclipses are very, very potent. They all affect us a little bit differently. Some eclipses we feel more so than others, but for each of us, on some level, we'll be moving through some sort of closing. The one thing that I do really love about this eclipse, and what I really think is wonderful, and what I kind of want you to use under this eclipse energy, there is a strong healing flow coming from this eclipse due to the alignment of Venus and Chiron. That is a very beautiful healing energy when Venus and Chiron come together, and it will be amplified under this eclipse. So if there is a wound in your life, if there is something that has been bothering you, something painful, this eclipse might really help to bring healing closure to that wound. Some wounds never heal, and that is okay. It is sort of a part of life. But under this eclipse energy, you just might get that little bit of peace, that little bit of healing that is needed to help you rise up and move on to the next chapter of your life. So even though eclipses are like guiding hands of the universe and put us where we need to be, I do think there is a power in setting an intention for healing under this eclipse, particularly if there is something that you wish to heal in your life, a wound that is painful that could use some ease around it. Set an intention under this blood moon eclipse and let that Chiron Venus energy work with that moon to bring you closure, to bring you that peace, to wrap up wounds and painful things that need to be addressed. This eclipse can really be helping you with that. A blood moon eclipse is the most potent type of eclipse we can experience. It really just is a total lunar eclipse. So just to sort of give you a little rundown, a lunar eclipse happens on a full moon, always. Lunar eclipses always happen on a full moon. We can have partial lunar eclipses. We can have total lunar eclipses. This is a total lunar eclipse, and it's called a blood moon because when that totality of the eclipse is reached, the moon gets a little bit of a reddish hue, so it looks like a blood moon. So we call it a blood moon because that sounds way cooler than just total lunar eclipse. So that's all a blood moon eclipse is. It's just a total lunar eclipse, and they are very, very potent. In astrology, they are one of the most heightened energies that we can experience. If you've ever felt a full moon, and if you've ever been sensitive to the full moon, a blood moon eclipse is like 100 of them all into one. So you can imagine how potent it can feel. However, I want you to know that you are the universe, right? So you hold within you everything you need to navigate through this eclipse. As I mentioned, it has beautiful healing energy around it. Healing energy that can bring you closure if you are looking for it. So use that energy if you feel called, and trust that no matter what unfolds, where you end up, that it is where you need to be for the highest evolution of your soul. It's not where you need to be forever, but it is a point on your journey helping you to move from one chapter of your life to the next. Eclipses are very, very profound, and probably when you are able to allow all those energies to settle, you'll be able to look back and see just how much you have grown, just how much you have moved from one state of consciousness to the next. So that is the eclipse energy. I think I mentioned that it peaks on May 15th or 16th. That will depend on your time zone. Eclipses are powerful though. If you're watching this video before the eclipse, you're already feeling it. Eclipses can linger for weeks after as well, almost a month after. We can be working with that eclipse energy. So be gentle with yourself. If you would like to work with this energy, if you're looking for some guidance on how to work with the eclipse energy, I have a ritual for you as always. I will drop a link below, but you can also find it at foreverconscious.com. It is specifically designed for this Scorpio blood moon eclipse. And just look after yourselves, be gentle with yourselves, protect your energy. Eclipses are always heightened, so just keep that in mind too. If you're noticing heightened emotions in others around you, try to receive them with kindness, try to protect yourself and just give each other grace, give yourself compassion, lots of self-care, and I hope you all have a wonderful week. When I see you next time, we will be on the other side of that eclipse portal. We'll be on the other side of the bridge and ready to enter into this new chapter, this new state of being. So I look forward to that, and I'll see you there. Thanks guys so much. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you feel like someone could benefit to hear these cosmic forecasts, feel free to share them along too. Thank you guys.